You won't believe what this guy found from his couch. Using nothing but Google Earth, a YouTuber stumbled upon something phenomenal in the American Southwest. Massive sandstone blocks, each one the size of a house, sitting in a bizarrely perfect grid. It looks exactly like a labyrinth carved by a lost civilization. He even went there and explored the strange narrow tunnels in person. So what is it? Is this the discovery of a lifetime? Or is this just one of nature's weird coincidences? Let's dive into this megalithic mystery that might have been hiding in plain sight all along, and some more that you didn't know existed. A megalithic labyrinth. Out in the sun-blasted hills of the American Southwest, where the only thing more common than tumbleweeds are UFO sightings, a man found something amazing. And he did it from the comfort of his own home, thanks to the app that turns couch potatoes into archaeologists, Google Earth. The discovery came courtesy of YouTuber The POV channel, who casually referred to it as the coolest thing he'd ever found, which is saying a lot considering this man crawled into what looked like nature's panic room with nothing but a flashlight and a dream. Not only did he find the thing on Google Earth, but he went to the coordinates and explored it in person. Maybe I should start doing that. What do you think? Our armchair hero found massive sandstone blocks, each around 50 by 55 feet, just sitting there in a bizarrely perfect grid, like someone dropped a Minecraft mod into real life. These stones have sharp angles, crisp edges, and gaps that look suspiciously like tunnels. It really does look like a labyrinth carved by some ancient, forgotten civilization. The YouTuber squeezed through this underground tangle like he was auditioning for the next Maze Runner movie, half expecting to meet a mountain lion or an ancient deity guarding a secret civilization. Let's just say claustrophobics need not apply. If you don't like tight spaces, stay home for this one. The POV channel mentioned it felt like being inside an Egyptian pyramid, except without the hieroglyphs, curses, or Brendan Fraser running from a sandstorm. He didn't find any petroglyphs either, which was a bummer because you know that every good adventure deserves at least one ancient doodle. But there is one monstrous problem, and it's that the YouTuber refuses to say where he discovered this phenomenal labyrinth. Judging by the landscape in the video, it seems to be in the American Southwest, maybe somewhere in Utah. But without knowing where it is, there isn't much more information I can give you. If you know more, be sure to let us know in the comments. Although it does indeed look like a maze, when you watch the drone footage, it's quite clear that he found an ancient weathering pattern caused by many, many years exposed to the elements. Crusty mud on a dried-up riverbed looks sort of identical to what he found. That's because it's the same idea, a natural weathering pattern that made hollow channels between the stones, making them seem like they were cut intentionally. And hey, maybe they were. Maybe he stumbled upon the remnants of an ancient quarry or the secret base of Earth's original landlords, or maybe he found one of nature's freaky geological monuments and won't tell the rest of us where it is. What are your thoughts on this discovery? Is it a revelation of the ancient world, evidence of prehistoric builders, or just Mother Nature doing her thing? The real Stonehenge was in Pennsylvania this whole time. Snow-dusted, silent, and steeped in quiet magic, this place looks like it was plucked from a forgotten scene in Lord of the Rings. But it's not a fantasy land, nor is it the ancient monument you might expect. Tucked away in the Keystone State's Blue Mountains lies a stone sanctuary so compelling, so genuinely awe-inspiring, you would swear that druids carved its massive stones themselves. Welcome to Columcille Megalith Park, also known as Pennsylvania's Stonehenge. It's the Keystone State's answer to an ancient mystery. And before you ask, no, it is not a discount Halloween decoration setup from Spirit. It's real, it's heavy, and it's way more legit than your neighbor's weird backyard rock garden. Some of the stones here weigh more than 45 tons. Go ahead and lift one of those, I dare ya. But hold on a second. First, let me tell you what a megalith actually is. A megalith is an ancient word that essentially means giant rock. Any big rock can be a megalith. The most famous of these boulder block parties is Stonehenge in England. You know, that dramatic ring of rocks that's inspired 1,000 conspiracy theories. But megaliths aren't just a British thing. They are scattered across the globe in Germany, Israel, Korea, and right here in Pennsylvania, land of pretzels and mysterious roadside attractions. Another thing about megaliths is that they don't necessarily need to be ancient. Columcille was lovingly created in the 1970s by two local dreamers who were vibing hard on Celtic spirituality. They blinked at each other through their hippie haze one day and said, "Let's build a sacred stone sanctuary inspired by Iona in Scotland." Then somehow they managed to convince the rest of the community to help out. And thus, Pennsylvania's very own spiritual Stonehenge was born. If your neighbor knocked on your door and asked you to help build a pyramid in their backyard, would you lend a hand or slam the door shut? What are your thoughts on this? A visit to this megalith park is like walking into a deleted scene from The Hobbit. While not massive, the park is dense with atmosphere. The stone circle feels like a place where you should be casting spells or doing yoga, or maybe both. There's even a bell tower that looks straight up medieval, looming like it's waiting for Rapunzel to unpin her hair. And now for a quick break because it's shout-out time. I want to give a big thank you to Steve Schauble and Aurora Hart for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. Ancient Irish block parties. Who built Ireland's most mysterious monuments? The answer just changed everything. Around 5,000 years ago, give or take a few centuries, people in Ireland got together and made some hard decisions. It was no longer enough to just bury the dead. They needed to build something more impressive than a flat, earthy grave to celebrate the most important among them. Stone megaliths came as the answer. They would erect huge stone pillars, align them with the stars, and throw parties to celebrate the recently departed. This idea caught on in Ireland like wildfire, birthing a whole era of giant rock tombs. Tombs that are frustratingly still keeping their secrets today. Who was buried in these tombs? Royals, chiefs, noblemen, important priests. Only the top tier of society was allowed to be buried inside megalithic rock tombs. At least that's what archaeologists thought, until recently. Turns out, Ireland's megalithic tombs were much, much more than just burial sites. Archaeologist Jessica Smith of University College Dublin looked at a study from 2020 and frowned. The study suggested a genetic link between dozens of humans found buried in Ireland's megalithic tombs. They even uncovered evidence of incest within family lines, suggesting a very early dynastic system, one where power was passed down through blood. Jessica decided to do her own study, and her investigation revealed something different. The skeletons were not part of the same royal family, and they weren't incestuous either. Smith and her team double-checked the data and found that most of the people in these tombs weren't closely related. Instead, they've suggested that Ireland's megalithic tombs were collective social projects. They were likely built as a way to bring diverse groups of people together through feasting, socializing, and hard work. They weren't tombs for the elite, but tombs for anyone. Anyone at all. The important part was the camaraderie. The ancients built the tombs as an excuse to hang out, party, and chat with single Susan from the tribe next door. The reevaluation of these megaliths is changing Neolithic history in Ireland. Scientists now believe that instead of early Irish society being centered around elite dynasties, they were far more egalitarian. They focused on social networks, cooperation, and connections between different groups. Dare I say it, the ancient Irish may have been the world's first socialists, maybe even communists. How do you feel about that? The strange magic of Gavrinis. Sometimes history makes zero sense. Off the salty shores of Brittany, France, where the seagulls sound like they're shouting old Celtic curses, you can find a sleepy little rock of an island that is hiding some very cool secrets. The island used to be called Gavrinis, but these days locals simply call it Goat Island. And it doesn't even have any goats on it. What a ripoff! Somewhere around 4200 BC, more than 6,000 years ago, someone decided this tiny island needed a megalithic passage tomb. They constructed a stone monument with more decorations than your aunt's living room. The aunt really into crochet, like me. This is one of the least famous megaliths in Europe. Yet it has more impressive decorations than Stonehenge, Newgrange, and every cairn from Brittany to Ireland. This isn't just a tomb. It's a prehistoric artist's magnum opus. Inside the tomb are 29 slabs lining a 50-foot-long passageway. 23 of the 29 are engraved with images of carved axes, staffs, horned animals that look like aliens got it on with a herd of cattle. There are also snakes, zigzags, and what archaeologists optimistically call shields, though they kind of look like a Picasso version of a stick figure. You think your high school geometry class was confusing? Try decoding Neolithic spiral math etched into boulders. At the end of the passage, there is a burial chamber roughly 8 feet across. It's built with about 50 slabs of carved stone, and the ceiling weighs 17 tons. How did the ancient builders install a whale-sized lid without forklifts or hydraulics? Even stranger is that a lot of these decorated stones may have come from an even older monument. In 1984, a team of scientists realized something weird. The outside faces of some of the passage slabs are also decorated, but you can't see the outside faces because they are facing outwards and are buried in dirt. This is crazy because it's like painting the inside of your drywall. It's totally pointless. The only logical explanation is that the stones came from a different monument and were repurposed. Archaeologists now believe that some of Gavrinis' stones were recycled from even older monuments. The grandest of them is a humongous slab that originally formed an almost 50-foot-tall standing stone. That's taller than a giraffe doing yoga on stilts. What happened to the original monument? Was it destroyed on purpose? How old was the original? There are so many questions. This whole conundrum makes me wonder what other ancient megaliths were repurposed from even more ancient megaliths. How far back does this cycle go? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Man steals ancient megalith. Okay, my wonderful friends, it's time for some true crime. But we're not hunting America's Most Wanted. This is the story of a man who stole an ancient megalith. And yes, he had instant regret. Some people steal candy bars, others swipe catalytic converters. One bold overachiever in Germany swiped a 1,000-pound rock. He did it in May of 2024 near Klotze, northern Germany. The thief rolled up to Imikath 1, a 5,000-year-old Hunengrab, which is the German word for giant grave. Then he liberated one of its half-ton slabs. And not quietly either. According to Susanne Friedrich, head of Germany's Department of Archaeological Heritage Preservation, this brazen theft was a clumsy disaster. When the thief tried to pull out one stone, he couldn't. Those things are heavy. So he went for a shallower one, which shifted the entire capstone and caused the remaining support stones to collapse like a sad game of Neolithic Jenga. Nice going. When investigators tracked the thief down, they found the missing stone from the grave, so that was good. But they also found 8 other mysterious stones arranged in a circle on his property. Listen to me, this guy was nuts. He stole standing stones from around Europe and built his own Stonehenge in his backyard. It was illegal, morally wrong, and just generally rude. But at the same time, you have to admit that building your own Stonehenge with pillaged standing stones is kind of a Chad move. Unfortunately for the authorities, they can't figure out where the extra 8 stones even came from. And the thief is not being cooperative. Maybe they're stolen, but since the cops can't prove it, they can't charge the guy with any additional crimes. You would probably think this is a one-off situation, right? Some lunatic stealing an ancient rock for his personal collection. But according to archaeologist Dominic Petzold, this isn't Imikath's first brush with theft. From an 1890 photo, experts know there were once 6 standing stones and a capstone. 2 stones were stolen between 2010 and 2012 and never recovered. This latest stone is just one more casualty in a weird trend of megalith burglaries. Thankfully, this time, the stolen stone was tracked down thanks to local citizens and the Young Archaeologists Association. But if the trend continues, someone might need to start guarding these ancient sites from crooks. As for Imikath 1, it's a tomb about 12 feet long and originally built by the funnel beaker culture around 3000 BC. These Neolithic farmers were dragging Ice Age boulders with oxen power before CrossFit made lifting cool. What is the punishment for stealing a stone from a place like this? The German authorities ordered the thief to return the stone in court this February, but it doesn't look like there will be any jail time. Should there be? Malta's mighty megaliths. Do you believe giants once roamed the earth, or do you need proof? Before Stonehenge was a twinkle in a druid's eye, before the Great Pyramid rose in the desert, There was Malta and its megalithic temples. Tucked between Sicily and North Africa, Malta's Neolithic sites are some of the oldest freestanding structures on Earth, dating back to 3600 BC. Depending on which team you're on, mainstream archaeologists or ancient alien believers, the megaliths of Malta are either masterpieces of early human engineering or a cosmic construction project. And to truly understand them, we need to dive deeper into their stories, starting on the island of Gozo, home to the Gigantia temples. Legend says giants built them. Why? Because the limestone blocks are massive, and somehow Neolithic humans with no metal tools, no wheels, and no machines managed to stack them like building blocks. These temples feature cloverleaf-shaped layouts, ceremonial altars, and inner sanctums that suggest a heavy dose of ritual and spiritual life on the island. Also, statues of the Mother Goddess have been found here, proving that prehistoric Malta was fully committed to divine feminine energy. The civilization responsible for building these megaliths may have been dominated by women. Who needs kings when you've got perfectly good queens at home? Moving now to Malta's southern coast, there stands Hagarkim and Menadra, two temples so advanced they come with their own built-in celestial calendars. These were Neolithic observatories constructed from stone before telescopes were a thing. Menadra's doorway is aligned with the sun so precisely that during solstices and equinoxes, sunlight pierces through the entrance like a spiritual Instagram filter your iPhone wishes it could pull off. And again, no metal tools. No wheels, no machines, just sheer willpower, sweat, and maybe a few human sacrifices to get the feng shui right. And the list goes on and on. You've got the Tarshian temples located near modern-day Paola. They boast intricate spiral carvings, stone reliefs of bulls and animals, and altars for mysterious rituals. Experts think Malta's Tarshian temples acted as a multi-purpose event space, community center, temple, sculpture park, and even a butcher shop. Thousands of figurines and tools have been found here, offering snapshots of the daily life and sacred rites of the Neolithic residents. And I've saved the best for last. The Hypogeum is Malta's underground Cathedral of the Dead. This three-level subterranean wonder was built over a span of almost 1,000 years, from 3,300 to 2,500 BC. Construction projects today are sometimes canceled after a few months, but the ancients committed to building the Hypogeum for over 800 years. They must have been unionized, right? What was the point of the world's longest-running construction project? The Hypogeum served as a burial site and a ceremonial public space. How many bones do you suppose have been found inside this subterranean marvel? Try 7,000 dead people found inside of this place. There are so many ghosts in the Hypogeum, there isn't an afterlife that can hold them all. Inside this crypt of the doomed are corbelled ceilings, acoustic chambers that make your voice echo, and even more female goddess figurines. One is called the Sleeping Lady, a chunky little fertility figurine once more alluding to divine feminine worship. Also, shout out to the red ochre wall paintings that are still visible thousands of years later. That's some prehistoric durability. I told you that archaeologists think the Hypogeum was built starting 5,300 years ago. But if you've seen Netflix's Ancient Apocalypse, you'll know that Graham Hancock has his own ideas. The controversial researcher claims that Malta's temples could be as old as 11,000 years. His proof is more of an argument. Hancock says there is no way ancient farmers who never built anything bigger than a shack pulled this impossible project off without some help. Help from the divine, help from aliens, or help from a much more sophisticated group of beings. Either way, just don't try to steal any of the stones. There's been enough of that going around lately. What do you think about Graham Hancock and his theories? Let me know in the comments below. Even the dead deserve a home makeover. A ghost brought back to life. In the quiet woodlands of Saxony-Anhalt, Germany, a team of archaeologists and volunteers just pulled off one of the most historically sensitive construction projects of the millennium. They restored a 5,500-year-old Neolithic tomb to its original shape. While we might not build megaliths anymore, a dedicated team has certainly mastered the art of restoring them. For example, the Kusterberg Megalithic tomb, a 5,500-year-old Neolithic marvel, was just dramatically unveiled on the European Day of Megalithic Culture after an incredible restoration. It was originally built by the funnel beaker culture, the same culture that built Imikath I, the place I told you about earlier that was robbed by the guy who built his own personal stone circle. But this tomb is a little different. Its internal chamber is 35 feet long and made of 19 massive upturned stones known as orthostats. It's also capped by 7 megalithic roof stones. At one point, the tomb even had a ring of 16 standing stones, like a huge fence with a lot of holes in it. But those stones are no longer standing. The site itself is oriented east-west, likely symbolizing the journey of the sun across the sky, or maybe the journey of the soul into the afterlife. It had a semicircular forecourt, ideal for prehistoric funeral parties. But then, disaster struck. 3,000 years ago, Iron Age folks showed up and trashed the place. They tore down the encircling mound and stone wall like ancient tomb flippers who ran out of budget halfway through the pilot episode. And over time, Mother Nature and modern farming bulldozed most of the rest. By the time archaeologists from the German Research Foundation excavated the original site in 2010, Kusterberg was practically dead. Its stones were broken, many were taken, and it was in a sad state. But archaeologists had a plan. For years, they carefully documented the tomb structure until they had a full blueprint of it. Using that blueprint, a team of experts rebuilt the whole thing using original materials. However, they couldn't really move the stones around themselves, so they used a modern crane. How ancient humans transported megalithic stones is still something of an unsolved mystery. By 2025, the tomb was complete. It's been fully revamped, open to the public, and waiting for you to take a selfie with it for nearly a year now. And you know what? It looks incredible. If Stonehenge is the cool, mysterious celebrity of megaliths, Kusterberg is the dignified comeback story that deserves its own documentary. If you've ever wanted to experience a megalith in its prime, this is it. It may be new material, but it looks identical to the first day it was finished in the year 3500 BC. You just can't get that kind of history anywhere else. Stonehenge's secret stones exposed. A bombshell report has just dropped that changes everything you thought you knew about Stonehenge. This report has modern scientists throwing their beakers at the wall in frustration. The experts, the amateurs, everyone has been wrong about the world's most famous megalith. For decades, the story went like this. Around 5,000 years ago, a bunch of enthusiastic Neolithic humans and whales rolled up their sleeves, chiseled giant stones out of quarries in the Preseli Hills, and heroically dragged them 150 miles across rivers, hills, and prehistoric terrain to build Stonehenge. That has been the official narrative. But what if it's totally wrong? What if the builders of Stonehenge didn't move jack squat? What if the stones were already at the site? Maybe the blocks just needed to be carved, moved over a few feet, and erected. If true, it would mean that Stonehenge isn't that impressive after all. If no one had to transport the stones, half the mystery goes out the window. Meet Dr. Brian John, a retired geologist from Durham University with a pet rock and a vendetta against archaeology's favorite origin myth. His secret weapon is a skull-sized boulder that sat in an attic for nearly a century. That boulder is now rewriting history. In 1924, while poking around the Stonehenge site, geologists Colonel Hawley and Robert Newell dug up a random-looking rock. Hawley, in what might go down as one of archaeology's biggest oops moments, called it rubbish and wanted to toss it away. Fortunately, Newell, who apparently had hoarder instincts and good judgment, saved it. Newell stuck the strange rock in a cardboard box in his attic, right next to a few other dusty curiosities. It eventually made its way to the Salisbury Museum, where it enjoyed another 40 years of obscurity in a storage area before Dr. John rediscovered it in 2022. John recognized the importance of this stone immediately. After a deep analysis of the boulder's surface, Dr. John found classic glacial trademarks. He identified facets that typically form as a rock tumbles in glacial ice, like a boulder in a rock tumbler. He also found rounded edges, typical of stones flipped and scraped by slowly moving glaciers. Every bit of evidence points to the boulder not being dragged across 150 miles of terrain by sweaty Neolithic stonemasons with too much time on their hands. The evidence points to the boulder being moved by retreating glaciers at the end of the Ice Age and being dropped off on Salisbury Plain like an abandoned suitcase left on a bench at the airport. This isn't just some fringe speculation either. Dr. John's been pushing his theory for years, arguing that the 80 or so bluestones scattered around Stonehenge were dropped there by Welsh and Irish glaciers, not hand-rolled by prehistoric powerlifters. The official story we've been told for decades came from geologist Herbert Henry Thomas in 1923. Dr. John said that Thomas was spectacularly wrong about almost everything. Yet because Thomas was the first expert to cook up an explanation for Stonehenge's building blocks, his explanation stuck. Scientists have been repeating it for 100 years like a bunch of parrots. And now it might be time to change the narrative. Do you trust Dr. John, or do you prefer the original Thomas explanation? Sound off in the comments. India's forgotten ancient dwarves. Forget what you think you know about giants. It's the dwarves you should be worried about. High up on the scorched, stone-strewn hills of southern India, something downright strange rises from the earth. Picture granite slabs standing upright like playing cards, topped with round stone roofs and featuring little portholes like prehistoric submarine windows. And scattered across these rocky ridges are dozens of them. Some in clusters, some solo, all standing there like they're waiting for someone or something to return. This is Muriyara-Guda, the hill of the Muriyas, near the village of Hida Benakal in Karnataka. Perhaps you've heard of it. But don't let the dramatic name fool you. This isn't just a pile of rocks with an identity crisis. It's an archaeological anomaly, a mythological hot zone, and the setting of one of the most bizarre ancient legends you've probably never heard. According to local lore and some very convincing village elders, the Muriyas were a race of dwarves. Not the bearded Tolkien kind who love hoarding gold, but a small, mighty people with superhuman strength. These pocket-sized powerlifters supposedly built the weird stone structures with their bare hands. They casually split boulders and tossed them into place like they each had Thor's hammer. Some stories even say they had hares and porcupines as construction assistants, as if they borrowed them from Snow White. The Muriyas lived hard, worked hard, partied hard, and died harder. Legend says they were wiped out by a rain of fire from the sky because they angered the gods. That's the legend, and now comes the buzzkill. Archaeologists have another take on Muriyara-Guda and its megaliths. According to science, these are megalithic sepulchres, tombs and memorials from the Iron Age, built between 1200 and 500 BC. When archaeologist Captain Thomas John Newbold investigated these stones in 1851, he noted the tiny entrances to the structures. Captain Newbold was confused because normal-sized human bones were found inside the buildings, but their doors were barely big enough for a corgi. Were these really dwarf condos or just fancy graves? But try telling Jambana, the local who introduced scientists to the site in 2007, that the structures are nothing but normal graves. He won't believe you, I guarantee it. Jambana claimed his grandfather saw a living Muriya with his own eyes, and that's the kind of first-hand source no amount of peer-reviewed journal articles can beat. If there was only one megalith and one Jambana with his outlandish stories, Muriyara-Guda would be easy to forget. But this isn't just one remote village spinning yarns about magical little stonemasons. The Muriya myth is everywhere across southern India. Wildlife biologist Samira Agnihotri discovered this same story echoed in the Biligiri Rangaswamy Hills, and researchers have tracked versions of it in Kodagu, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala. In Tamil regions, the dwarves go by names like Panduraru or Valiyaru, while in Kerala they are called Pandyan Chondyan, which sort of sounds like a medieval rapper. All kinds of prehistoric structures, from dolmens to sunken cysts, are attributed to the same mini-masons. And then you've got legends out of Hawaii of the Menehune, dwarf-sized megalithic builders too. These dwarves supposedly lived all across Polynesia and built grand structures way before Europeans showed up. Could the Polynesian Menehune have been the same as the Muriya? Could there have been a global population of pint-sized stonemasons with the strength of Hercules? How many megaliths did they build? If you're a fan of Origins Explained, which I'm beyond grateful if you are, you've probably heard me talk about Homo floresiensis, the hobbits of Indonesia. These mysterious ancient hominins lived until 50,000 years ago, so kind of recently, and they were just over 3 feet tall. Their home was the island of Flores, where locals still talk about the Ebu Gogo, a race of small, hairy, wild people who vanished into the jungle. Some Flores locals think the Ebu Gogo are still alive and well, hiding in the darkest parts of the forest where they can avoid prying eyes. Sound familiar? The Ebu Gogo, the Menehune, the Morillas, their legends are nearly identical. Their existence could finally solve the mystery of many of the world's megaliths. These dwarves could be the last whispers of a long-lost species. Thanks for watching! If you could hire builders from one ancient culture to build you a megalith, who would you choose? The funnel beaker culture? The ancients of Spain? Malta? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!